Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Dr. Alaina Johnson, psychologist, author, and founder of Parenting Talent LLC. Please enjoy Dr. Alaina Johnson. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Dr. Alaina Johnson, psychologist, author, and founder of Parenting Talent LLC. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
You and me both. I am so excited to chat with you about creativity and seeing how our worlds intersect and cross over. We are going to have so much to talk about. But before we dive in, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of moments and letting our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Oh, no problem at all. So, like you said, I am Dr. Alaina Johnson. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm an author. I'm a consultant. And most importantly, I am the mom of three boys who kind of surprised us by all three pursuing the creative arts at varying levels, varying times, varying degrees, ranging all the way from complete hobbyist to I now have a young adult son who is pursuing it as a career, and my middle son is right on his heels. Can't wait to get out of high school to do the same. It was my experience of raising them and realizing there were questions that I was struggling with to answer about how to best support them in those moments where crisis would hit, or they were feeling frustrated or defeated or disappointed in their performance, all of those things. I began to really question, am I doing all the things I can to protect their self-esteem and support them in this process? Because I thought it was wonderful. And I think the creative arts are just an amazing thing. And so I kind of realized, if I'm having trouble answering those questions with my doctorate in clinical psychology with an emphasis on child and adolescent psychology, I'm betting I'm not the only person out there who is kind of saying, oh, am I doing this right? What's going on? And I'm trying to say all the right things and they just don't seem to be landing. So that led me to do a bunch of research. It led me to interview other parents, have some deep conversations, as parents will, sitting outside rehearsals, performances, tech week, all those things. And eventually I put it all together into a book about kind of just understanding young creative minds and how to best support them as parents, or as I like to also say, and the people who love them. Just how do we talk to them? How do we make sure everything is going as best it can and helping them get through those challenging moments and making big decisions and all the things. So it's been the most wonderful, amazing journey. And I'm so grateful to my boys for having led me down this path.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love hearing this. And first and foremost, thank you for putting something together for parents out in the performing arts world, because it's a uncharted territory. I can only imagine. As a performer, it's uncharted territory. So for a parent with performers in their family, I can only imagine how challenging it can be.
And I know when I was looking, I'm obviously, I pursued my doctorate. I'm a researcher by nature, and not everybody is. But what I definitely noticed is when I would do casual searches, I could find lots of information about either how to get my kids to be creative, which was never an issue in my house. Creativity was everywhere and bursting through the seams. And it's rare to come in my house where you don't hear music at some point if you're here for too long. And also what I found was that there was lots of stuff about parents of athletes. And while there's absolutely some overlap, there's also things that are very different about the two. So that was part of that. Yeah, this is uncharted territory. And how do we start to think about this a little bit differently and really specifically tailor it to these, teens and tweens and young adults?
Absolutely. I'm so curious, having creativity as such a huge part of your everyday life, whether it's working with your children or other parents, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Ooh, that is a big question. But I think the most important thing when I think of creativity and when I talk to teens, I definitely work with other teens now
Mhm.
around this, I talk about being able to really let go and dive into your authentic self and express that in whatever medium that is. So, really being able to kind of strip away any concerns about what people think and how is this going to turn out and all the things, and just saying, this is what I'm feeling, this is who I am, and I want to express that externally in some way. That's how I think of creativity. That ability to just go there and let whatever comes out be the product that you produce.
I love that. And the authenticity piece, which lends itself to actually like really needing to know who you are.
Which can be a little complicated when you're a teen, you
Oh,
know? That
absolutely.
and when teens struggle with that creativity part of it, we talk about that. We talk about, there's this whole duality of you're still trying to figure out exactly who you are. So you may be trying on all sorts of things creatively because you're still trying on all sorts of parts of your personality and really narrowing it down to who am I? And
Mhm.
we also talk about, and this is a big topic, but in doing that, we have this whole conversation around vulnerability and why it's so
Mm.
hard to be your authentic self and to get into that vulnerability point and really express yourself openly.
Absolutely. And as performers, the job of them is to be vulnerable in front of strangers,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is so challenging. How do you work with parents in like supporting their young adult artists to navigate those vulnerable spaces?
Well, you know where this comes up a lot is when I see these young performers who've been performing since they were maybe 6, 7, or 8. They're just that
Mhm.
natural personality. They've always loved it. They're always the one who's getting up and singing and they're doing all the things, and the parents say, okay, I get it. And they put them in all the different activities and the performing arts, and they're loving it. They are fearless. They will jump up there. They will, sing in front of anyone, dance in front of anyone. They're
Mhm.
happy to sit there and give you an entire monologue that they just learned. And they clearly are loving it and having the best time. And
Mhm.
then they start hitting that middle school age and something starts to shift. And all of a sudden, these kids who were just clearly enjoying every moment of being in public and receiving that feedback from the audience, they get a lot more shy
Mm.
and they seem a lot more reticent. And I'll get parents coming to me saying they're really confused because they're going, well, I know they love it, but all of a sudden they're saying they're not sure they're going to try out for the school play. And, I've been waiting for this forever. I was like, great, I finally don't have to pay for you to be in this. You can do it through your school. And they're like, no, 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 I'm not going to. And so that's often where, with parents, that conversation about kind of both what's happening developmentally and
Mhm.
vulnerability. So
Mhm.
when I talk to them about, that shift that's going to happen, that is supposed to happen, they are supposed to stop looking to adults as their primary place of getting their positive feedback and who they're mimicking. They're supposed to pull away from us and they're supposed to go and start looking to their peers. It suddenly becomes a more vulnerable thing. They're
Yeah.
not sure their peers are going to accept this. Are my peers going to be supportive? And some of it just really depends on the culture and the environment that you're in. I was very fortunate that my kids are in a school that very much values the arts.
Mhm.
So it was actually considered kind of cool to be in the school musical in middle school. But I know for a lot of kids that's absolutely not the case, especially sometimes for the boys, which just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And so suddenly they're pulling back and they're really concerned about feeling vulnerable. And when parents are going, oh, I don't want them to be like that. I want them to be okay with that. I don't want them to worry so much about what other people think. I have to remind them that, if you step into vulnerability,
Mm.
you are opening the door to shame. And that nobody likes to feel shame. No one. And we will do all sorts of things to avoid feeling shame. So, yes, they may even be kind of willing to risk a little bit of vulnerability, but suddenly that fear of shame and shame in
Mm.
front of their peers is what's holding them back. So, we talk about how to help them practice, stepping into that vulnerability and how to kind of shut the door on shame
Yeah.
and kind of say, no, nope, 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 I'm going to do this thing. And some of that is just practice. It really is
Right.
just practice. Finding safe spaces to
Mhm.
go and do what you love where you can just enjoy it and you can step into that vulnerability time and time again without being worried about any shame, kind of practicing that muscle and then being able to take that back and say, you know what? I wasn't ready to do it in sixth grade, but now in seventh grade, I think I'm ready to try out for the school play.
Nice. I love that. I love just the the education piece around development and the how normal it is for middle school age children to pull back from getting that feedback from parental individuals or
Mhm,
parental supports and moving more
mhm.
towards their peer, and how scary that is to have a peer not like something or not support
Well,
it.
and how frustrating for a parent if they're not really tuning into that, because,
Right.
this is the age where you'll get a kid coming home and, their teacher will just praise them. Let's say they had to learn a new dance move and they finally mastered it after working and working. And the teacher's
Mhm.
so excited, and praises them and takes the time to shoot the parent an email and saying, oh, I'm so proud of them for working so hard. And then the next day they come home and they're just like, it doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. And you're kind of going, what happened? And you find out someone at school, not the expert from their dance studio,
Right.
but someone at school decided to tell them, a peer,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that good, or I don't understand why you're excited about that, or just diminishes it. And that seems to carry more weight for them when they're in that developmental period of their life.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I mean, I imagine, working with young adults, the teenage tween space of individuals in performing arts, that there is the opportunity to navigate rejection if you don't get the part or you don't get into the dance company or the band or the, whatever. How do you navigate that? I'm imagine with your own children and then supporting other parents to be attuned to navigating that with their own young artists.
Well, first of all, I want to get them to the place where you're at. You're clearly an adult performer, because the way you worded that is the goal, is to get someone to the point of saying, I get to navigate this and it's
Yeah,
okay. This is just part of it, versus going into this very black or white thinking
right.
that can be, I didn't get the part, I suck, I will never be successful in this. Forget it, I'm never going to try again.
Hmm.
So, yes, that is absolutely something I spend a lot of time on with teens, is really talking about mindset and
Mm.
how to flip into a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So that, feeling of, this is it, forget it. I mean, I didn't get the part I wanted, so clearly I'm horrible. And this very black or white thinking, where parents and the people around them might be going, but you still got a really big part. You just didn't get the lead. Nope,
Right.
nope, I suck. Clearly, I shouldn't pursue this.
Yeah.
Into a growth mindset of, oh, okay, I'm disappointed. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And I can have that feeling, but I need to move past that feeling and get to a point of being able to say, okay, what can I learn from this part?
Mm.
Clearly, the director feels that there's either one, that I'm good for it, even if I can't see that I'm good for it. And
Mhm.
maybe there's all sorts of things I can learn. Maybe, and I have suggested this, I was like, if you've been in a program a long time and your director's a really good director and they know what you can do, sometimes what they're going to do is push you outside of your comfort zone because they know that's good for you. They actually see you as being so good that they want to start stretching you. They want to say, okay, but you know what? We're not going to typecast you. We're going to put you outside your comfort zone. We're really going to make you dig into that acting and really dig into learning how to embrace that part. And so when I can get them to understand that their thought process is not necessarily the external thought process
Right.
from everybody around them, we can start talking about, oh, okay, yeah, how do I start looking at this from a growth mindset? Now,
Yeah.
it's not always easy. And as I tell parents, I was like, they can hear that from me all day, every day and believe it. But my own kids, because I'm mom and I say it, it's, you're just saying that to make me feel better. So
Right.
I do understand that for parents, it can be a little hard, but I like to remind them that, let's work on the growth mindset outside of those crisis moments.
Mm.
Let's really lay that foundation, find those things that don't even matter or that they're naturally going to a growth mindset about, and pointing
Right.
that out so that it becomes a bit of a muscle for them to say, I always say to them, you get your 24 to 48-hour period of just feeling horrible. It's
Mhm.
okay. You're entitled to those emotions. This is a big disappointment.
Yeah.
But then I want you to start writing down the things that are positive about it. What can you get out of it? Don't, I
Mm.
know it's easy to find that negatives list, but what are the potential good things that can come out of this that you're not even aware of?
Right. That's such a great reminder to recognize that shift between fixed and growth mindset. And what an opportunity to start learning that at such a young age. Because when I work with adult performers who are struggling with that, it's a whole different ball game for them to get back into that space of the growth mindset. Yeah. I'm
I
so
think it's easy.
curious. Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I just think it's easy for all of us to forget. I think we
Yeah.
all need those reminders at times that, okay,
Mhm.
it's, yes, disappointment is miserable,
Yeah.
but, but almost always we can look back at those big disappointing moments. And even if we're like, oh, I still wish that I'd gotten that part, you can say, oh, but this happened because of this. And I learned this because of this, or I met this person because of this, or
Right.
because I didn't have to be in rehearsal for so long, I actually got to explore something I didn't even know that I liked. And then I found this whole other love as part of it. So
Hmm.
I like to remind people to try to look back at those moments, even the adults I work with, because I do work with some adults as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so curious, knowing that you have this creative household and creative children experience, when you think of your own childhood and your own life, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that being creative was always part of who I was.
Mm.
So I do have very early memories of just like, so we watched a lot of PBS in my house. So I would remember going out in the backyard and having my own safaris and crazy adventures, or turning my backyard in the middle of July into Antarctica. And I'm going on. So there was that part of creativity that I remember from a very young age, always having
Yeah.
this vivid imagination of being told that. And then I also always enjoyed drawing. And I
Mm.
was very fortunate. I had parents who, if they saw my brother or I have a deep interest in something, they would usually try to find a way to let us go deeper with that. So find us lessons or a mentor, or
Hmm.
so I remember taking lessons very early. And then probably not quite as my earliest memory, but I always have loved reading and writing. And I remember
Mm.
when I finally kind of hit that point of being able to write a story myself, not just kind of tell myself one in my head, and being really excited about those creative moments.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of those pieces.
Mhm.
And I too was a PBS child and had my own adventures in our backyard. I'm curious if, having kind of this wild or vivid imagination as a kid, how have you kept that alive in adulthood, or how do you continue to cultivate that in your own life?
I'm going to answer that kind of the long way. And the reason being, part of why I think I was so drawn to doing what I did and really wanting to make sure that I was doing everything I could to understand and support my kids through their journey,
Hmm.
was that as much as my parents were really incredibly supportive of, oh, you're interested in that, go explore that, they were also very much of a generation of, so I played the flute for years. And it was, I actually considered majoring in it. I auditioned to get into conservatories, ultimately kind of leading into a program that would have potentially been 5 years, but would have given me the double major,
Hmm.
because for my parents, this was not a practical major. This is something where you're not going to make money. This is an amazing hobby and you're great at it. And you can be a psychologist during the day, and then you can go play in the community orchestra in the evening. But what
Yes.
they're going to pay you for that community orchestra is not going to support you. So I definitely got that message, and I saw many people around me getting that message. And
Hmm.
ultimately, I ended up deciding at the last minute not to major on the flute. And
Mm.
it was kind of when I stopped at that point.
Yeah.
And it was really important to me to make sure that my kids were encouraged to continue to explore their creativity in any way that they wanted, as
Mhm.
openly and as for as long as they wanted.
Mm.
So whereas like all three of my kids forever were involved in music, and my youngest played drums for a very long time. And in the past year has kind of said, you know what, I'm ready to stop.
Mm.
And it's interesting because people said, oh, are you okay with that? And I said, yes. Like, Of course, it just because I wrote this book about this, in the book I talk about also knowing when it's time to quit and knowing when it's
Yeah.
time to move on. And for him, we, honored his commitments that he had for that year. And then he decided he wanted to look at other things and he added volleyball to what he was doing and quietly started picking up the guitar he had asked for. And though we've offered lessons, he's like, no, 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 no. And has a brother who absolutely could teach him, who actually does teach. um, nope, he wants to do it on his own. And I was like, that's fine.
Mhm.
Exploring that creativity in any way that you want to on your own is really important. So in wanting to be a do as I say, not as I do, really started making an effort to reconnect with my creativity
Mm.
as I was supporting my kids on this journey and even figuring out what that looked like as an adult. Because, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it if somebody wants to, as an adult, in their backyard and have a trek to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Great. Love that you can still do that. That was not so much where I was at. So it was really finding, hey, what what makes me feel good in my
Mm.
creativity? What do I want to explore? I've always liked various mediums of it, but in the end, I think writing is probably where I enjoy being creative the most and
Mm.
probably where I spend my most time being
I love that. Thank you for the long roundabout answer. I appreciate all the
creative.
nuances and the bits and pieces that go into
There was a lot there.
finding the things that bring you joy and expressing your creative self through whatever medium it is. Because I think that we oftentimes, I know I can get a little narrow focused on it has to look a certain way, and how can I expand my own experience of expressing my own creativity, or whether it's with how I get dressed or put food on a plate, or,
Yep,
the small moments of
exactly. Ex-
creativity that I can find in my
Exactly.
life. Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you are working with parents who may not feel creative but have creative, expressive children, I'm so curious, how do you encourage parents to find creativity in their own life as a source of connection or understanding?
I ask them to be open to the idea. I also want to hold for them that, it takes lots of different types of personality to make the world go round.
Mhm.
So it's okay if you yourself cannot relate to your child's creativity. It's only important that you support that this is important to them. And if they need support you're not sure how to give them, help them find those mentors in their lives. But it's okay, just like if somebody had told you, like, so if I have a parent who, let's say, they're a biochemist, and I'll say to them, just like if someone had told you, that's cute, I love it, that's awesome, all that sciencey stuff you do. But what you really have to go do is we want you to actually go draw all of the images for the textbook for biochemists. You'd be like, what are you talking about? There's no way. So it's okay if it's not in your wheelhouse. That is totally fine. At
Mhm.
the same time, I absolutely encourage them, kind of what you were saying, to say, creativity is not a limited term. So, what are places that maybe you are creative and you don't even realize it? And we will have that conversation of kind of going through about how do you do that and how do you lean into it? Or for the more adventurous parents, I will actually encourage them to take a class in something they're not familiar with. And what I have discovered about that is when I can convince a parent to do that, every single one of them has come back and said, I have a newfound respect for what my kid does.
Mm. What a gift that is. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And to the parent to take you up on that suggestion, that seems like not only are they, have that new respect for what their child does and understanding, but I imagine that they too have found some aspect of their own creative self through that process, or at least I would hope they
Yes.
have.
Or I've gotten the opposite, but they've been able to laugh at themselves and they've,
Okay.
come out of an improv class going, so what I've discovered is I'm right. I am horrible at that. That was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. But again, I have such respect now for my child
Yeah.
who can just get up there and be thrown, and next and
Right.
go, okay, and boom, and that's just not my thing at all. So yes, I've said I have yet knock wood. Hopefully I never will. I've never had it be a negative experience. I've never
Mhm.
had it not do what I wanted, which was to have the parent have more connection to understanding what is
Mhm.
going on with their child. And that's really what my goal is, if I can get the parent to buy in.
Yeah. Have you put yourself in those situations where you're trying things that
I have tried a few new things. The one thing that's ironic is my children are, uh, all of them have been musicians at various points. The older two want to be musicians.
Mhm.
My middle musician and actor, but my oldest is 100% musician. And there is an adult contemporary music program near me, and I know the person who runs it, and I get it. And I tell parents that, I go, they keep trying to pull me into that. And I'm like, absolutely not. And I get it. That vulnerability
Mhm.
is really scary. So I tell them, you got to remember, this is always a work in progress. I still have to work on, okay, maybe someday I'll feel that courage to
Yeah.
try that program for a little while and put myself out there like that. And I say this knowing there could not be a more supportive environment. It is an
Sure.
incredibly supporting, loving, but it's a scary thing to do. But yes, there in other things that aren't quite as scary to me, I have said, let me dabble with this. Let me try this. Let me look
Yeah.
at this and see what this feels like to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your sharing, your vulnerable sharing about what is and is not on your list right now to
Yes.
try and
Yes.
practice.
Not a thing. You should say no. That's for you two. You guys can
Which
sing
is,
all you want.
I think, also really valuable, right? To be able to honor that no for yourself in
Absolutely.
what
Absolutely.
isn't going to support you or bring you joy or, yeah. So,
And getting teens to recognize when it flips, because something may have found brought them tremendous joy at a certain point or a certain level, and then as they progress, sometimes it can flip, because
yeah,
what I'll see is, like, suddenly they're being put into the pre-pro class because they've advanced so much, and they don't like the pressure of that,
right.
and they're not quite sure what happened, and we have to go back and say, oh, okay, it's okay to have a boundary. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't want to be in the pre-pro. I still want to
Hmm.
stay in the lower level classes. I understand that I could be over there, but I'm doing this for fun and pleasure and joy, and this for me is not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Oh, what an amazing ability to honor that shift or that flip and recognizing I don't want to do the more advanced piece. This version of it really works for me and to acknowledge that and honor that. So,
And getting parents to acknowledge and honor it, because sometimes if their kid's been doing this from a super young age,
yeah.
they're so excited. Oh, we finally made it. Yes. And then the kid goes, wait, what? No, this is what we've been working for. I keep saying this, it's what they've been working for. And maybe they even were working for it, but now that they have it, it isn't what they thought. And
Yeah.
that is okay. You want them to be able to check in with themselves and know
Mhm.
when something doesn't feel right. And when I
Yeah.
put it that way, often parents go, you're right.
We need those reminders.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, this has just been the most delightful conversation. I just have one last question for you.
Sounds great.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I think when I'm feeling my most creative, it's actually because what I do is very cerebral. That's how I'm creative, is in writing.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like a body thing for me. It's
Mm,
um very much going into flow, and it's not even a conscious thing, but it's being removed and just being in this altered state where the words just kind of come seamlessly and you lose track of time, and it just feels very calming. It's very meditative for me when I'm
mm,
in my most creative states
mm.
to do that. But again, I think that's probably in part because what I do tends to be a little bit more cerebral, whereas I can say that I would venture to guess my son would say that it's a very different thing for him and his body because he likes to dance while he sings. So,
Mm,
yeah.
mhm.
But for me, it's not very much a body sensation. It's
Yeah.
actually almost an out of body sensation and kind of leaving and just being in that flow state.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. If people want to learn more about the work you do, how could they go about doing that?
The best way for everything is to go to www.parentingtalent.com, regular spelling, parentingtalent.com. And that's the best way to get information about how to work with me. There's information about my book, and all the things that I do are all in that one space.
Perfect. Well, I will add that to show notes so people have easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. It has been such a treat.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely conversation that I truly enjoyed.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.